Welcome everybody to the Utah Story Show. My name's Rich Markosian. A very exciting show today. We're going to do a review of our local newspaper on their coronavirus coverage, and we're going to tell you why Karl Malone, the mailman, was left out of ESPN's hit documentary series on Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, The Last Dance. That 10-part series had massive ratings, and noticeably absent was the mailman. So why wasn't he there? We delve into that topic and coronavirus coverage, and we'll share with you also a few of your comments and also one of my favorite trails in Utah. So all that is coming right up. But first, I want to tell you about Canyon Meadows grass-fed beef. If you have not tried pasture-raised beef, you really need to try Canyon Meadows. Their ranch is located in eastern Utah in beautiful Altamont. Visit CMR Beef to stock up on ground beef, roasts, and steaks, and they have pickup locations all throughout Salt Lake City. Now, if you haven't tried the difference between factory farm beef and pasture-raised beef, you absolutely need to give them a try. Joel Salatin was recently on Joe Rogan's podcast. Joel Salatin is known as the father of the pasture-raised movement. Go check out that episode of Joe Rogan. I think everybody needs to see it. Pasture-raised beef is raised sustainably, and it's regenerative agriculture, meaning it's improving the environment as we raise the cattle instead of degrading the environment. Joel Salatin explains it better than any other man I've ever seen explain it. It's how I got turned on to pasture-raised beef, and Canyon Meadows is the very best producer in Utah. So it's good for the earth, it's good for you, and it has delicious flavor. Go visit him right now at cmrbeef.com and enter offer code UTStories. That would really help this program out if you go do that, and enjoy it. All right. So I've been resubscribed to the Salt Lake Tribune for the last year or so. I really enjoy a lot of their content. They have a lot of great writers, but I'm finding noticeably absent from their coverage any meaningful statistics related to coronavirus, death rates of different age categories and different health categories of the people in Utah. This is my call out to the Salt Lake Tribune. Make a graph. I know you have the CDC data, just as I do. It's a difficult thing to do. It would take all day. I didn't have time to do it. But make a graph that shows by age category who is dying from coronavirus. So everybody who fits in a different age category is able to know make their own risk assessment. For example, I'm 44 years old. I used to suffer from asthma. I don't anymore. I don't have any preexisting conditions. What is my risk factor in coronavirus? So instead, we see articles like this. Hispanics have more coronavirus cases than other Utah ethnicities. And they spent a lot of time coming up with this graph. 78% of people in Utah getting coronavirus are white, but nationwide, that's Utah's total population, 78%. But 38.6% of people getting coronavirus are Hispanic. And then this very nice graph here, but that just doesn't help me as a news consumer or a resident of Utah in determining my own risk assessment. And I've not seen anywhere in the mainstream media, on CNN, MSNBC, the only place where I see this in a relatively okay fashion, but not detailed, is Fox. But what is my risk category? So I went out looking today, surfing the net, trying to answer this question, Googling it, looking at everything that was popping up, and I found this website. I want to show this to you. So this is the Center for Disease Control, and this is pointing out all of the coronavirus cases since I believe January. What you're going to see here is that there were a lot more cases popping up in the middle of April than we see right now. There is actually a precipitous decline in overall cases. And with the articles that are coming out in the Tribune today, COVID-19, 100,000 lives taken and counting. That is the big headline. Now we have seen more death from coronavirus than we saw in the Vietnam War and the Korean War combined. And that's terrible, awful news. Oh my gosh. But if you go to the CDC website and look at this graph and this huge downward sloping trend, the number of cases that are actually, the number of people actually dying has decreased extremely precipitously since April. Why is that not being reported? Why is that not something that we can all celebrate? Why instead are we having this horrific news, this terrible tragedy that we've surpassed how many lives were lost in Korea and Vietnam? And why don't we point out the actual strong downward trend of cases? So if you could explain that to me, anybody in the media who's reporting on this, who's been told to report on this, I would like to know. That's all. So that is, I have another story from the Salt Lake Tribune I wanted to point out. So this is really interesting. So there's an organizer of a concert who is named Eric Moutsos. I think that's how you pronounce it, Moutsos. And he plans to defy the order and proceed with a concert that he planned on Saturday night featuring country star Collin Ray at the amphitheater at Studio Ranch near Grantsville. It has a capacity of 100,000 people. This will absolutely defy the ban of our state officials, which say there can be no mass gatherings more than 20 people. He's knowingly going against the state ban, but what he's doing is he's going in line with the Freedom of Assembly Clause of the First Amendment of our Constitution, which no local authority, state authority can actually subvert. It's a constitutional right that we have to have freedom of assembly. So if everybody there understands their risks in going to this concert, and chances are most people who go will probably wear masks, they'll practice social distancing. I just wonder, are the state authorities going to come in and bust up this concert? So are we going to not let people practice their First Amendment right and instead tell them they need to go somewhere else? That's what we're going to find out on Saturday. I found this very interesting. So in the middle of this story, what we find is the mayor of the concert was originally going to happen in Kaysville City. And Mayor Katie Witt was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's have a concert. That sounds great. But then her opponents warned that it was reckless endangerment to residents. I don't understand that point. If residents don't want to go to the concert, they don't have to go. So how's that reckless endangerment of the residents? And then the city council of Kaysville said if the concert were to go on there, they'd unplug all of the sound equipment and they would break up the whole concert. So that's why he moved it to Grantsville in the middle of Tooele, and Moutsos, turns out, has led several rallies against the virus restrictions, including 1,000 people at the Salt Lake City Hall. He insists they pose little danger, and we've had zero spikes of COVID with thousands of our events, and I'm not worried about people's safety at all. And why should thousands of people be allowed to go in Walmart and Costco, but not be allowed to assemble in other places? I think that is an excellent point. The only places where you see thousands of people gathered are Costco and Walmart. It's banned from churches. It's banned to assemble in churches right now in Utah. I think that's terrible. People have the right to assemble for religious purposes. And if a bunch of people want to get together for a concert, they have the absolute right to do that as well. So back in March, you remember spring break? when all these kids were getting together on the beaches of Florida, and the mainstream media had all their cameras pointed to those beaches, and they were saying, look at what these kids are doing. This is going to cause a massive spike in infection. This is so irresponsible, so terrible. What happened to that story? What happened to that? Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, I heard him saying that the cases in Florida are so low, and the young people getting coronavirus is almost non-existent in Florida. There was never any spike. All these kids were gathering together at the beach, and it didn't happen. What happened to that story, CNN, MSNBC, Channel 4, 5, 2, 13? I mean, I wish the truth was getting out there that the spikes are not happening when people gather together. We've now been reopening Utah's economy. We are seeing a decline in cases. It's just not being reported. And so the last story from the paper I want to share with you, it's on the very back of the Utah section. Actually, Tyler, can you hand me that? It's the Utah section. Thank you. So on the back page, we find, this isn't a Tribune story. It was actually written by the Associated Press. 1.5 million was allocated for Utah coronavirus overflow. The money went unspent. So the state legislature was in panic mode. What are we going to do with all these cases, all these people who, when they get coronavirus? So they allocated $1.5 million for quarantine, lodging, and hospital overflow, and they did not use any of the money. They also spent $1.2 million to set up 250 sleeping cots and medical equipment in an exhibition center in Sandy to give hospitals a place to move non-critical patients where they were overwhelming the healthcare facilities. The need has not arisen, said Utah Commissioner of Public Safety Jess Anderson. The state also rented 60 hotel rooms through the end of May for $245,000. They were intended to shelter people experiencing homelessness and traveling through the state if they had contracted coronavirus. I assume those rooms were not used, the way the story is written. But what we see here is all of the models, all of the projections. You know, at the very beginning when we did these huge shutdowns due to what was happening in Italy, what was happening in the spread, and celebrities were getting coronavirus, we were all, panicking, especially like in Utah, Darren Williams got it, and Rudy Gobert. And let's shut everything down. But we were supposed to see 1 million cases. It hasn't been anywhere near the projections. And so nobody wants to report on that. And so I just wanted to point that out. I love the reporters and the hard work that local journalism does in the Salt Lake Tribune. I encourage everybody to subscribe to a local paper. But that is my critique of what's going on with coverage locally, and I think they can be doing a better job not making people feel like they still need to stay at home or wear masks. I can't believe this one when they're outside running, how you can run with a mask over your face. I saw statistics that virtually nobody gets the coronavirus when they're outside away from other people. It just doesn't happen. So you can take your mask off and run and be healthy and strong that way, which is a perfect segue into my next segment, which is sharing with you one of my favorite trails along the Wasatch Front. These are some photos of today at the Pipeline Trail with my dogs, Scamps and Joey. I'm sharing this trail with you, hoping that you will go to this trail and be responsible. It's getting to be a pretty congested trail. They just built a new parking lot at the base of Mill Creek Canyon. It's an amazing parking lot. I really like that now it's super easy to get out of your car and you don't have to risk your dogs getting hit. And you can go straight up. We climb up this steep trail and we get up to the pipeline from Rattlesnake, and then we run along Rattlesnake, which is kind of along the rim of the top rim of Mill Creek Canyon. And then we get to the Grandeur Peak trailhead, which that video I just showed you is showing. And then go up the Grandeur Peak trailhead about a half a mile, and then we do a loop back around. And it's about 7 miles. It's an amazing workout. And right now it is so beautiful in the mountains. Everything is blooming. Everything is green. I like to just sit there by that river I showed you and chill out with my dogs for about 10 or 15 minutes and meditate. And I just think it's the greatest thing we have in Utah. It's like our trails, our mountains, being able to access them 10 minutes away. That trailhead is 10 minutes away from this office. I know more people are discovering Utah, but please come here, be responsible, respect trail etiquette, clean up after your dogs, and we can all enjoy this place and what it is. And with that said, I've just created a new YouTube video explaining the purpose and mission and values of this channel and what we hope to do here with this channel. I hope you'll go and watch that. And on another note, we recorded an earlier podcast about sustaining our way of life in Utah with the CEO of Envision Utah. And that was a really fun one to record as well, with their thoughts, his thoughts and values, and what they're trying to promote in the growth, this amazing growth we're seeing in Utah right now. All right, and I want to tell you why Karl Malone was left out of the Last Dance documentary. But before I tell you about that, I want to tell you about the Carpet Barn. The Carpet Barn is located in South Salt Lake. They've been in the carpet business for over 40 years. Their staff is friendly and helpful, and they have a huge selection of carpet, which, if you are looking to save money, it is truly awesome for the price. I just carpeted my basement with one of their higher-end carpets. It was $9 per yard, and it's so far superior to the carpet which I paid $12 a yard for 10 years ago. It is ridiculous. It is such awesome carpet. So for all your carpeting needs, visit the Carpet Barn in South Salt Lake and mention Utah Stories. That would be very helpful to us. All right. So why Karl the Mailman Malone was left out of The Last Dance? It's like Stockton was there. I think Jerry Sloan should have been in that documentary as well. But here's what Karl Malone has to say about Michael Jordan and what his thoughts are with Michael Jordan. I want to play you this clip first.
So when I say the name Michael Jordan, what comes to mind?
Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan.
Well,
what else I need to say? Thank you. Go ahead.
So talk to me about the Game 6 finals in Utah when he stole the ball.
Why? Why do I have to? But I tell you this, I'm all man, and I accept the responsibility for not winning one, and we was there. We just happened to be playing the Chicago Bulls, which wasn't just Michael Jordan, by the way. And I have the utmost respect for Michael, but I never thought I was playing Michael Jordan. I was playing the Chicago Bulls. But let's not, everybody say this person was a bad man and all that. Well, yes, I give them respect. But I got a set up. I'm a man, and I was a bad son of a bitch too. So
okay, we'll stop it there. So, Karl Malone, super amazing basketball player, received the MVP award in 1998. In the documentary, Jordan says that fueled him. Karl Malone getting the MVP award was absolutely justified. Karl was scoring, I believe, 31 points a game. Just a magnificent player, and some of my greatest sports memories of all time are watching the Jazz play the Chicago Bulls in the NBA Finals. I love that series. If you haven't seen the series of The Last Dance on ESPN, it's incredible. And they come to Utah when the Bulls were playing them in '98. My office at that time was right next door to the Delta Center and Triad Center. It was insane. Like, thousands of people camped out during the day just to try to see a player and cheer them on. And it was just like everybody descended into this area because the energy was just so amazing to try to build up our team to get them to win. Karl has always been a little bit of a head case. Scottie Pippen said to him in a game in 97, I believe, the mailman, hey, Karl, the mailman don't deliver on Sundays. And Karl was stopped playing well that day after Scottie Pippen said that to him. And I love Karl Malone, but he just he lost the ball in the last minutes, the last seconds of that game. We lost the game 7 against the Bulls, and they took it. That was actually game 6, actually, and they took it home. And so I wish he would have agreed to do it. So Karl did not want to appear in that documentary. That's the reason. They reached out to him several times. They really wanted him to appear, but Stockton even said in the beginning he didn't want to appear in a Michael Jordan puff piece. I don't think The Last Dance was a Michael Jordan puff piece at all. It presented how incredibly mean Jordan was to his other players when they didn't perform, and how incredibly physical the game was back then. I loved NBA basketball back in the late 90s. I can't say it's the same game anymore, but I guess it's a safer game today. It's a less physical, but I love looking back to those 98 Jazz. And so, that's the reason Karl declined to appear in the documentary. They would have loved to have had him. And so that concludes this episode. I just have one more advertiser I want to tell you about. Just north of downtown Salt Lake City in the Marmalade District is Diversion Eatery. They offer excellent low-carb and gluten-free options and delivery to folks who live near their restaurant. Free delivery. Their pizzas are amazing. Their chili cheese fries are incredible. Their tacos are excellent. They have gluten-free burger bowl, which I personally love. I can't eat a lot of gluten. They have a huge selection of craft beer. It's just an awesome place, and I highly recommend if you're doing curbside delivery takeout, go check them out. The best way to get their food is by using their app found on diversioneatery.com. And again, if you live within 3 miles of the restaurant, it's free delivery. And if you live outside of that restaurant, go make a trek down there. Maybe go to the City Creek Canyon first with your dogs or go on a hike. It's right down North Temple off of City Creek Canyon, and you can go to them at 535 North and 300 West. So with that, I really appreciated the comments I've been getting from you folks listening and watching the program. If you're watching on YouTube, that's where we get a lot of our comments. We did a show about inflation, whether massive inflation was about to happen. We got some really well thought out, good comments on that one. And we're getting great comments and great feedback on our episodes all the time. So I really appreciate that. Keep it coming. All right, so that concludes this episode of the program. Thank you so much for watching. Our in-house technical producer is Tyler Bond. Our booking manager is Connie Lewis. And our digital publisher is Golda Hukic Markosian. All right, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.